in my trousers. My finger kept on going into my leg.
We turn towards the gunfire that rattles out on our right beyond Bassy, where the shrapnel still rains down. The houses are burning. I hear from both sides, it's our own guns shooting at us. I stick very close to the ground, face against the earth.
For all its modernity, there were elements of the battle that Napoleon would have recognized. Cavalry, armed with lances, played an active role. No one wore tin helmets. And as these original colour photographs of the Marne show, some soldiers' uniforms owed more to the parade ground than to the needs of camouflage. There were easy targets in the early months.
My rifle went to my shoulder. 2 Frenchmen fell. I fired again. Nothing. My magazine was empty. I reached for my bayonet. I expected to be killed by a bullet any second. But then the rest of my men burst through the undergrowth, and the enemy vanished.
The Germans were in a shade of field grey. But the British were even more difficult to spot, as another German enviously noted.
The colour of the English clothing is much more suited to the terrain than ours. It's a sort of browny green, a really dirty colour. This really is an advantage, although we're still going to win.
With men dug in along so vast a front, aerial observation became vital. Balloons and planes gathered crucial information. They also began to take on a more active role.
A French plane suddenly appears. It turns and drops something. The air fills with a strange whistling, followed by a violent explosion. It's dropped a bomb. 7 horses killed, 3 men lost. For us, this is something completely new. None of us know how to defend ourselves from this monster of the skies.
German reconnaissance planes monitored the worsening situation at the Marne. Pilots' reports went to Count von Bülow's Second Army headquarters at Montmaur. Handwritten reports like this one revealed the steady advance of the Allies into the lethal gap between his men and the First Army. On the 8th of September 1914, von Bülow ordered his forces to retreat.
We continued to fall back, passing through French villages. In the faces of every inhabitant we saw scorn and derision. The women leaned out of their windows and thumbed their noses and sneered at us. To them, we were the defeated army.
The French referred to the battle as the Miracle on the Marne. France had been saved, but at a cost of 250,000 casualties, the same losses as the Germans. No future battle on the Western Front would average so many casualties per day. Louis de la Grandière, a French ambulance driver, was based at Saint-Sophie Farm in the thick of the battle.
We're surrounded by dead bodies, thousands piled one on top of another. We've got used to the shelling now. We don't even look up. whole area has been devastated. The local people, gone.
"33 German generals were quietly sacked. Moltke was replaced by Erich von Falkenhayn after a tactful pause. The German people were never told the truth about the Marne. Indeed, the myth at the war's end would be that the German army was undefeated in the field. But in a sense, they lost the First World War here, never having again the chance they had at the Marne to win a resounding victory against the Allies. Germany was now committed to a long war, and she didn't have the resources for it. In November 1914, Falkenhayn ordered his troops to fall back to high ground and dig in. Unable to break through, the Allies had few options but to dig in as well. The pattern for the Western Front was now set, with its line of trenches stretching from the Channel to Switzerland. 500 miles of mud and horror that would be home to the living and the dead for over 3 years. 27-year-old Bernard Montgomery, the future victor of Alamein, wrote home to his mother.
The situation is strange here. I eat peppermints with a dead man beside me in the trench. The German trenches are only 700 yards away. The weather is perfectly vile, very wet, and it's starting to get cold too. My clothes are soaked and muddy, but it's too cold to take them off. Any warm things you can send me and the men will be greatly appreciated.
And beyond no man's land, beyond the German lines, 11 million French and Belgian men, women and children were learning to adapt to their changed lives as civilians under German occupation.
Tuesday, cruel Tuesday. The German troops ride past my window. I hear a guttural order, Arme! Soon the town is filled with Boche, the beasts, the swines. They confiscate all weapons and demand 250,000 francs in gold.
The extraordinary diary of a 10-year-old French schoolboy, titled Journal of the Franco-Boche War. Yves Congar lived with his family in this house in Sedan, eastern France. Yves' mother encouraged him to write a diary to keep him busy during the summer holidays. It became a unique record of the occupation. What Yves had seen when the Germans marched into Sedan was forced requisitioning. At the outset, Germany adopted a policy of state intervention for war production. In peacetime, Germany imported raw materials, but she knew that the Allies would impose a blockade. So German industrialist Walter Rathenau drew up plans to ensure the most effective use of what materials Germany had. But after a few weeks of war, the German state had most of France and Belgium's industrial and mineral resources at its disposal. These were now taken back to Germany, millions of tons of raw materials, plant and foodstuffs. But the asset stripping wasn't limited to government. The German army was ordered to live off the occupied territories. What the soldiers wanted, they took.
Moved on towards Fromelles. The inhabitants were pensioners. Our boys found a stash of wine and eggs. We helped ourselves. In the meantime, the church was shot to bits. Not a single house was spared.
They have taken, rather stolen from us, straw, copper, oats, and the belongings of over 8 million people. They have looted the cellars, the empty houses, the walnut trees, the telegraph poles, and the livestock.
One doctor in Lille pleaded with the German authorities.
My patient, Madame Lefebvre, is 86 years old. She's in a state of great weakness and serious malnutrition, which makes it absolutely necessary for her to keep her mattress.
It wasn't just material loss. The Germans rounded up thousands of teenage boys and girls for forced labor.
The last 3 weeks we have spent in the most terrible anguish and moral torture possible for a mother's heart. At 3 in the morning, these German heroes go out with a military band and machine guns and bayonets fixed to hunt down women and children, to take them away. God knows where or why.
Eve's brother got a job at the railway station.
Robert is unloading wagons of animal carcasses, already green and covered with rotten pieces of flesh, crawling with vermin. He has to touch these stinking dead animals with his bare hands.
Occupied France was run like a military state, as this film of the German military police in Lille shows. Clocks were set to German time, new identity papers issued.
The Germans generally made us parade at 5 a.m. One night, however, the whole commune was called out at 1 in the morning. An old man of 92 asked to be allowed to stay in bed. But the troops made fun of him, pushed him out of the house, and said that fresh air was good for the dying.
Ordinary people had stark choices to make about how to deal with the occupation. There was some resistance against the Germans, mostly passive. Belgian opposition was spurred on by the head of the Catholic Church, Cardinal Mercier. His letter, Patriotism and Endurance, was read out in every church across Belgium in February 1915.
God will save Belgium, my brethren. You cannot doubt it. Nay, rather, he is saving her. Across the smoke of conflagration, across the stream of blood, have you not glimpses of his love for us? There is no perfect Christian who is not also a perfect patriot. Whence, in truth, comes this irresistible impulse which carries the will of the whole nation in a single effort of resistance in the face of the hostile menace?
Mercier kept up his resistance, calling the Germans an army of evil and Lucifer's own. This embarrassed not just the Germans, but the Vatican. Like Pope Pius XII during the Second World War, Pope Benedict XV refused to condemn German atrocities. The Germans placed Mercier under house arrest in a bid to silence